The king is on his knees in the dirt. His robes are torn, his hair is matted, his beard is full of ash, and in his arms he is holding the body of his friend. It has been 7 days of refusing to let anyone come near, 7 days of refusing to eat, 7 days of refusing to believe what is right in front of him.
And then, on the 7th day, a worm crawls out of his friend's nose, a single worm. And Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, the man who was 2/3 god, the man who had slaughtered monsters and defied the goddess of love, breaks. He drops the body, he backs away, and he runs out of the city into the wilderness wearing the skin of a lion because he has finally understood something terrible.
He is going to die too. That is the moment the oldest story in human history pivots on. Not a battle, not a miracle, a worm, and a man who has finally noticed that he is mortal.
Welcome to Tales Unwound. You are with Adam.
And Emma. Today we are going back further than we have ever gone. Past the pharaohs, past Homer, past the Hebrew Bible, back to the very first time a human being pressed a reed into wet clay and told a story that was meant to outlive them. Mesopotamia, Uruk, the Epic of Gilgamesh.
And if this is the kind of thing you want more of, Emma is about to tell you what to do.
Hit subscribe. Seriously, just do it. It takes a week to build. And knowing that people are coming back for the next one keeps us making them. So if the deep dives are your kind of company, follow the show. That's how the next one finds you. Okay, Adam, let's set the stage. Where are we? And when?
We are in southern Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. Today, that is Iraq. Roughly 2,700 years before Christ, this is the most advanced region on Earth. And the city we are going to spend most of our time in is called Uruk, which modern scholars think is where the word Iraq actually comes from.
Uruk was, by any reasonable standard, the first city in the world. Not the first settlement, not the first town, the first city. At its peak, around 2900, before the Common Era, Uruk had somewhere between 40 and 80,000 people living inside its walls.
That is more people than lived in any single place on the planet at that time. London would not reach that population for another 4,000 years. Uruk had monumental architecture, ziggurats, temples, a wall, and most importantly, it had writing.
This is the part that always gets me. The people of Uruk, or really the broader Sumerian civilization, invented writing, not inherited it, not adapted it, invented it. Somewhere around 3200 before the Common Era, a scribe in Uruk pressed the first cuneiform marks into wet clay, and human beings stopped being a species that only remembers. We started being a species that records.
And the Epic of Gilgamesh is what that invention eventually gets used for. Not first. First, it's grain, ledgers, and tax receipts. Cuneiform is a bureaucrat's tool for about 1,000 years before anyone uses it for literature. Then someone decides the oldest hero story they know should be written down.
Now, the question everyone asks at this point, was Gilgamesh a real person?
The answer is a genuinely weird yes. Or at least maybe. There is a document called the Sumerian King List, a record of every king who ruled in Mesopotamia going back into legendary time. And Gilgamesh is on it, listed as the 5th king of the first dynasty of Uruk.
The list gives him a reign of 126 years, which is obviously mythological. But a real historical king named Gilgamesh, or in Sumerian, Bilgames, probably did rule Uruk somewhere around 2700 before the Common Era. He built the walls of Uruk. The epic itself opens and closes with those walls. They are archaeologically attested. You can still see remnants of them in southern Iraq today. In Iraq today.
So somewhere underneath the myth, there is a real warrior king, a man who ruled a real city, whose name, against every conceivable odd, survived.
And the way the story got to us is almost as incredible as the story itself. For most of recorded history, nobody in the West had ever heard of Gilgamesh. The Greeks did not know him, the Romans did not know him, the Bible does not name him. For more than 2,000 years, he was just gone.
Then in 1853, a British-backed excavation led by an Iraqi archaeologist named Hormuzd Rassam is digging in the ruins of Nineveh in what is now northern Iraq. Rassam is a Christian Assyrian, a local, and he finds the library of King Ashurbanipal, the last great king of Assyria, 7th century before the Common Era, who had scribes travel across the empire copying every important text they could find.
That library burned when Nineveh fell in 612 before the Common Era. Burned which in Mesopotamia means baked. Those clay tablets were fired hard by the flames. Some of them were preserved by the very fire that destroyed the palace they sat in.
Rassam ships crates of these tablets to the British Museum. Thousands of tablets in fragments, all in cuneiform, a script nobody in 1853 had fully deciphered yet. And they sit in the British Museum basement for almost 20 years because nobody can read them.
Then a young man named George Smith comes to work at the museum. He is not a scholar. He is a banknote engraver by trade. He teaches himself cuneiform on his lunch breaks. He starts piecing fragments together night after night.
And in 1872, Smith picks up a tablet and begins to read and realizes he is reading a story about a flood, a global flood, a man building a boat, animals going in, a raven being sent out, a dove being sent out.
He is reading the flood story on a clay tablet that is older than the Hebrew Bible. The legend is that Smith got so excited he started tearing off his clothes in the British Museum reading room. That is probably exaggerated. What is documented is that he stood up and shouted and ran around the room with the tablet in hand.
And that flood tablet was part of a larger story. A story about a king named Gilgamesh. Smith goes out to Nineveh himself to find more fragments. He finds them, he translates them. And the world, for the first time in 2,000 years, meets Gilgamesh again.
That is where the story we are about to tell comes from. 12 tablets, about 3,000 lines, reconstructed from fragments dug out of a burned palace and decoded by a self-taught banknote engraver.
So let's tell it. Gilgamesh is the king of Uruk. He is 2/3 god, 1/3 man. His mother is the goddess Ninsun. His father was a mortal priest king named Lugalbanda, and his body is the result. Huge, beautiful, impossibly strong. The epic describes him with real admiration. But Gilgamesh is also a tyrant.
The opening of the epic is surprisingly blunt about this. The people of Uruk suffering under their own king. He is using the young men of the city for his own pleasure. The text is ambiguous, but seems to describe forced labor, forced athletic combat, or both.
And he is exercising what the text calls the rite of the first night. On every bride, every wedding in Uruk, Gilgamesh shows up first, before the husband.
So the people of Uruk cry out to the gods, not in a general prayer for help, in a specific complaint. Our king is too strong. He has no equal. Please send him someone.
And the gods listen. The mother goddess Eru, who in some versions is the same as Ninsun, takes a pinch of clay, she moistens it, she shapes it, she breathes on it, and she throws it into the wilderness, and a man is born, or a not quite man. His name is Enkidu.
Enkidu is what Gilgamesh is not. Where Gilgamesh is urban, Enkidu is wild. Where Gilgamesh wears royal robes, Enkidu is naked. His body is covered in thick hair. His hair on his head is long and matted. Eats grass with gazelles. He drinks at the watering hole with the other animals. He is humanity before civilization. And that is what the goddess has made him to be.
A hunter discovers him first. A trapper working the edges of the Uruk territory. The hunter is terrified. This wild man is filling in the pit traps he sets for animals, freeing the gazelles from his snares, ripping up his nets. The hunter goes to his father and then to Gilgamesh himself and asks for help.
Gilgamesh gives him advice that is going to matter. He says, take a temple priestess with you, a woman named Shamhat. She serves at the temple of Ishtar, the goddess of love and war. Take her to the watering hole, have her uncover herself, have her lie with this wild man. And when she has done so, the animals will no longer recognize him.
This is the civilizing moment, and it is sexual. That is how the Mesopotamians told this story. The thing that separates humans from animals is not language, not tools, not even agriculture. It is sex as a conscious cultural act. Sex not for breeding, but for relationship.
Shamhat goes out to the watering hole. Enkidu comes to drink with the animals. Shamhat uncovers herself. And Enkidu sees her and does not run. For 6 days and 7 nights, the text is very specific. Enkidu and Shamhat are together.
On the 7th day, Enkidu stands up and tries to return to the animals. And the gazelles run from him. The other creatures of the steppe no longer recognize him. Something has changed. His body is slower. His senses are duller. His mind is newer.
And Shamhat speaks to him. She teaches him how to wear clothes, how to eat bread, not grass, how to drink beer, not pond water, how to bathe, how to walk as a man walks. And then she says, there is a king in Uruk who is your equal. Come with me.
And this is where the epic shows its oldest emotional intelligence. Because Enkidu does not come to Uruk in peace, he comes to fight. The wild man has heard about Gilgamesh's abuse of the city, specifically the right of the first night, and he is enraged. He positions himself in the door of a wedding house, waiting for the king.
Gilgamesh arrives expecting the bride, finding instead a hair-covered 7-foot man blocking the door, and they fight. It is one of the great wrestling matches in all of ancient literature. They crash through doorposts. They shake the walls of Uruk. Gilgamesh throws Enkidu. Enkidu throws Gilgamesh. The whole city comes out to watch.
And then this is the part that I think makes the story immortal. The fight just stops. They are on the ground, exhausted. And Gilgamesh laughs, and Enkidu laughs, and they embrace, and they become friends.
Not allies, not rivals turned companions. The text is precise. They kiss, they hold each other, they become inseparable. The oldest surviving description of male friendship in literature is written at a heat level that modern readers have to decide for themselves how to read.
The Mesopotamians did not separate the category of best friend from the category of beloved in the way modern English does. What the text tells us is that from that moment forward, Gilgamesh is a different man, less cruel, more generous, and the city of Uruk finally gets a break from his appetite, because his attention is now entirely on Enkidu.
And Enkidu has a problem. He is restless. He has been civilized, but he has not been given a purpose. He sits in the palace, Uruk, and he grows sad. He tells Gilgamesh, I am going soft. I eat bread and drink beer and sleep on cushions. I feel my body becoming weak. I need to do something.
And Gilgamesh, who has always been looking for a worthy adventure, has just the thing. There is a forest a long way to the north. Some scholars place it in what is now Lebanon, the Cedar Mountains. Others place it in the Zagros range to the east. The forest is full of the tallest, most fragrant cedar trees that Mesopotamia has ever heard of.
And the forest is guarded by a monster named Humbaba, or in some later Akkadian versions, Huawa, a giant whose face is described as a coil of intestines, whose breath is fire, whose roar is a flood, whose eyes are death.
Gilgamesh says, let's go kill him. Let's cut down the cedars and build great doors for the temples of Uruk out of them. And in doing so, let's make a name for ourselves that will outlive us. That phrase is right there in the text. The Mesopotamian idea of immortality, before this story takes the turn it is about to take, is fame, legacy, the memory your city holds of you after you are gone.
Enkidu is actually the voice of reason here. He says, Gilgamesh, I have lived in the wild. I know what is in that forest. You do not know what you are proposing. But Gilgamesh will not be stopped. His mother, the goddess Ninsun, weeps, but she adopts Enkidu as her second son, so that if they both go, at least they go as brothers.
Off they go, north. For weeks. They travel faster than any mortal could. The text says they cover journeys of a month and a half in 3 days.
Gilgamesh has a series of prophetic dreams on the road, each more frightening than the last. Mountains falling on him, storms, a great bull goring him. Enkidu interprets each dream as favorable, even when they obviously are not. He is doing what a friend does. He is lying to keep the other man moving.
They reach Humbaba. They confront him at the entrance to the forest. And Humbaba is terrifying. His aura alone can paralyze a man. But the god Shamash, the sun god, who has taken an interest in Gilgamesh since 13 wins. They pin Humbaba down, they blind him, and Gilgamesh and Enkidu strike.
And then Humbaba, pinned, begs for his life. This is the moment I want everyone to pay attention to, because this is the moment the story stops being a simple monster-slaying, heroic tale.
Humbaba does not roar. Humbaba pleads. He says, Gilgamesh, you have caught me. I am yours. I will be your servant. I will plant cedars for you in your own country. Just let me live. And Gilgamesh hesitates. He is genuinely about to spare the monster.
And Enkidu says, no. If we let him go, he will tell the gods, he will bring trouble, finish him, and Gilgamesh, persuaded by his friend, raises his weapon and kills Humbaba, and Humbaba, dying, curses them both. He says, may the two of you not grow old together. May the two of you not see each other buried. That curse is going to land.
They cut down the cedars. They build a raft. They sail down the Euphrates in triumph with Humbaba's severed head and the largest cedar trunk they can carry. They return to Uruk as heroes.
And this is where the goddess Ishtar looks down from heaven and sees Gilgamesh coming home, bathed, washed, in fresh robes, young, beautiful, victorious, and she wants him. Ishtar is the goddess of love and war, one of the most powerful deities in the Mesopotamian pantheon, and she makes Gilgamesh an offer. Come be my husband. I will give you chariots of gold, palaces of lapis lazuli. Kings will bow to you. Harvests will come doubled.
And Gilgamesh refuses her, not gently. The text has him list all of her former lovers and what happened to each of them. Tammuz, her first husband, who she sent into the underworld every year. A bird whose wing she broke. A lion whose pit she dug. A horse whose whip and spur she delighted in. A gardener named Isolanu she turned into a dwarf frog.
He is mocking her in front of all Uruk. He is saying, everyone you have ever loved has been destroyed by that love, and you want me to join the list.
Ishtar flies to heaven in rage, and she demands from her father, Anu, the sky god, that he release the bull of heaven to go punish Gilgamesh.
The bull of heaven is exactly what it sounds like, a celestial bull of such monstrous size that when it descends to earth, its first snort kills 100 men, its second, 200. It lowers its head to drink the Euphrates, and the river runs dry in 7 gulps.
Gilgamesh and Enkidu fight it in the streets of Uruk. Enkidu grabs it by the tail. Gilgamesh drives a sword between its shoulders. They kill it. They butcher it. And in one final act of spectacular disrespect, Enkidu tears off one of the bull's hindquarters and throws it into the sky in Ishtar's face.
That was the mistake. You can apparently get away with killing a forest guardian and insulting a goddess in public. Maybe. But you cannot get away with dismembering a divine bull and throwing its leg at the goddess who sent it.
The gods meet in council, and they decide that one of the 2 heroes has to die. Killing Humbaba was a trespass. Killing the bull of heaven was an outrage. The gods debate which one of them should pay. And they decide it cannot be Gilgamesh. He is 2/3 god. He is under divine protection. It has to be Enkidu.
Enkidu, who was made from clay by a goddess only a few years earlier. Enkidu, who the gods created for the very purpose of being Gilgamesh's counterweight. Enkidu is going to die. He learns this in a dream. The gods visit him in his sleep and tell him the decision. He wakes up sobbing.
And here is one of the most human scenes in all of ancient literature. Enkidu lies on his sick bed. He starts to decline. He has a fever. And he begins, in his fever, to curse the people responsible for his death. He curses the hunter who first saw him. And he curses Shamshat, the priestess who civilized him.
He blames her. Because of you, I left the wild. Because of you, I am here dying in a bed. May you never have a house of your own. May you sit forever in the dust at the crossroads.
And the sun god Shamash hears him. And Shamash speaks down from the sky and corrects him. He says, Enkidu, listen to yourself. Without Shamshat, you would not have eaten bread. You would not have drunk beer. You would not have worn clothes. You would not have met Gilgamesh. You would have lived and died alone in the wilderness, and no one would ever have known your name.
And Enkidu, lying there, understands. He lifts the curse. He blesses Shamhat instead. He says, may kings and princes love you. May you be called into the houses of the great. That reversal from curse to blessing on a deathbed is one of the most emotionally precise passages in any ancient text.
Then Enkidu has another dream, the last one. He dreams he is taken by a being with the face of a bird, the claws of a lion, and this being drags him down into a place he calls the House of Dust.
The Mesopotamian underworld, which in their imagination is not paradise, not hell, not reward, not punishment. It is just dust. The dead sit in the dark. They have feathers for clothing. They eat clay. They drink dust. Kings sit next to beggars, indistinguishable.
There is no weighing of the heart here, no field of reeds. The Egyptians built elaborate afterlife theology around reward and punishment. The Mesopotamians, older than the Egyptians in many ways, had no such comfort. The dead all end up in the same gray place. Enkidu wakes from this dream and tells Gilgamesh. And then, 12 days later, he dies.
In Gilgamesh's arms. And this is the image the cold open of this episode started with. Gilgamesh holding the body of his friend, refusing to let anyone touch him, refusing to let the embalmers do their work. For 7 days, the text says, he covered his friend like a bride. I want everyone to sit with that image. The 2/3 god warrior king. 7 days, not letting go of the body.
Until the worm crawls out. And that is the moment Gilgamesh, who has never been afraid of anything, finally understands that this is going to happen to him too, and not just eventually. He is going to be a body. There is going to be a worm.
And he does something unprecedented. He leaves Uruk. He takes off his royal clothes. He puts on animal skins. He stopped cutting his hair. He stopped cutting his beard. He walks out of his city, into the wilderness, alone.
He is looking for Utnapishtim, the one man in all of human history, according to Mesopotamian legend, who was granted eternal life. And Gilgamesh is going to find him and make him give up the secret. He walks for months. He crosses deserts. He kills lions with his bare hands. The text is specific about this. He is running on grief and rage.
He comes to a mountain called Mashu, Twin Peaks. And at the entrance to the mountain stand two scorpion beings. Their upper halves are humanoid. Their lower halves are scorpion. Their glance can kill. They recognize him. They say, "You are 2/3 divine. No mortal could have walked where you have walked. What do you want?"
And he tells them he wants to find Utnapishtim. He wants to know the secret of his immortality. And the scorpion beings are moved by his desperation. They open the gate. He enters a tunnel under the mountain. The tunnel is the passage of the sun at night. For 12 double hours, he runs in complete darkness. The sun is behind him and gaining. If it catches him, he burns.
He emerges on the other side of the world, into a garden of jewels, trees with leaves of carnelian, fruit of lapis lazuli, thorns of obsidian. It is beautiful and it is alien. And in that garden, at the edge of the sea, he meets a woman running a tavern. Her name is Siduri.
Siduri is one of the great minor characters in any ancient text. She is an alewife or divine bartender. At the edge of the world, she wears a veil, she is wise, and she tries to stop him. She looks at Gilgamesh, hollowed, filthy, clearly half mad with grief, and she says something I think is one of the most remarkable passages in all of ancient literature.
She says, "Gilgamesh, where are you running? The life you are seeking, you will not find. When the gods made humankind, they kept eternal life for themselves. They gave death to human beings. So, fill your belly with good things. Dance and be merry. Feast and rejoice. Let your clothes be fresh, bath your head. Look at the child who holds your hand. Delight your wife in your embrace. For this is the task of humanity."
Eat, drink, be merry. Literally. Centuries before Epicurus, 1,200 years before Ecclesiastes, 2,000 years before any Greek philosopher says a word on the subject. A Mesopotamian woman in a clay tablet tells a grief-stricken king that the answer to death is to live fully, carefully, in the company of the people you love.
And Gilgamesh cannot hear it. He is too deep in his grief. He pushes past her. He crosses the garden. He reaches the shore. And there he meets Urshanabi, the ferryman of Etim, the only person who can cross what the text calls the waters at death.
Any drop of that water on a mortal's skin is fatal. Urshanabi has stone charms, enchanted stones, that allow the pole of his boat to push off the bottom without the water touching him. Gilgamesh, in a rage, smashes the stones before he understands what they do.
So they have to cross without them. Urshanabi tells Gilgamesh to cut 120 poles of cedar. He will use each pole once, never letting the pole touch the water after it has pushed off, and then throw it away. And use his own skin as a sail when they run out. 120 cedar poles later, they reach the far shore.
And there, sitting calmly in a small house, is an old man and his wife. Utnapishtim, the one who lived. And Utnapishtim looks at Gilgamesh, who looks more like a wild man than a king at this point, and asks him the same question Siduri asked. "Where are you running? What do you want?"
And Gilgamesh tells him, "Enkidu is dead. My friend whom I loved, who went with me everywhere, who helped me kill Humbaba, who helped me kill the bull of heaven. A worm crawled out of his nose. I am afraid of death. Tell me how you live forever."
And Utnapishtim does not answer directly. He tells him a story instead. A story about a flood. Long ago, Utnapishtim says, the gods decided to destroy humanity. The humans had grown loud. The god Enlil could not sleep. The council of gods decided to send a flood to drown them all.
But one god, the clever, patient, humanity-loving god, whispered a warning. He did not warn Utnapishtim directly. He whispered the warning to the wall of Utnapishtim's house, loud enough that Utnapishtim would overhear. The whisper was this: "Tear down your house. Build a boat. Save the seed of all living things. A flood is coming."
Utnapishtim builds a boat. A cube actually in the original description 7 decks, 120 cubits on every side. He loads his family, he loads artisans, he loads every animal he can gather, domesticated and wild.
And then the rain comes. For 6 days and 7 nights. The text says even the gods were afraid. They climbed to the highest heaven like frightened dogs. Ishtar wept. The mother goddess wept. They had not known they were going to destroy everything they had ever loved.
On the 7th day, the rain stops. The boat comes to rest on a mountain called Namush in the Kurdish highlands of what is now northern Iraq, and Utnapishtim sends out a dove. The dove returns. He sends out a swallow. The swallow returns. He sends out a raven. The raven does not return, which means it has found dry land.
Utnapishtim opens the boat, releases the animals, climbs a mountain, builds an altar, pours out an offering. And the gods, who have been starving without human sacrifices, they feed on the offerings, smoke, swarm down like flies. They are grateful, they are ashamed.
Enlil, who ordered the flood, arrives and is furious that anyone survived. But Ee convinces the council to spare Utnapishtim and his wife, and as a reward they grant the two of them eternal life, and banish them to the edge of the world, where they now sit.
If this sounds familiar, it is because this is almost exactly the story of Noah. The Epic of Gilgamesh is at least 1,000 years older than the Hebrew Bible. The flood tablet George Smith, read in the British Museum in 1872, was dated to around the 7th century, before the Common Era. And the story it tells is even older than that, going back through Mesopotamian versions to the Sumerian period.
Most scholars today believe the Hebrew authors of Genesis almost certainly encountered this story during the Babylonian captivity, the period in the 6th century before the Common Era when the Jewish elite were forcibly relocated to Babylon. They would have heard it. They would have known it. And when they wrote their own version, they reworked it.
A boat, a man and his family, pairs of animals, rain, a raven, a dove, a mountain landing, an offering on the mountaintop. The bones of it are identical. The theology is different. The Hebrew version has one moral god and a righteous man, where the Mesopotamian version has a bickering pantheon and a clever man, but the plot is the same.
That is a weighty realization. The flood story in the Bible, which billions of people have treated as unique revelation, is a retelling of a story from southern Iraq that is hundreds of years older.
And it is told to Gilgamesh as an answer. Because Utnapishtim's point is, I did not earn eternal life. The gods gave it to me once, as a one-time gift, in a situation that will never happen again. You cannot be me. There is no more immortality to give out.
And then he gives Gilgamesh a test. He says, if you cannot conquer sleep, which is the little brother of death, how will you conquer death itself? Sit here. Stay awake for 7 days and 7 nights. Gilgamesh sits down and is asleep within minutes.
Utnapishtim's wife bakes a loaf of bread and sets it beside him each day. 7 loaves, each one in a different stage of decay. The first loaf mouldy, the second dried out, the third stale. On the 7th day, the first loaf is a hard black disk, and the 7th is still warm.
When Gilgamesh wakes up, Utnapishtim points to the loaves. You have slept for 7 days. You cannot even stay awake, and you want to defeat death. Gilgamesh breaks down. He knows he has failed.
But Utnapishtim's wife takes pity. She tells her husband, you cannot send this man home with nothing. Tell him about the plant. So Utnapishtim tells him, there is a plant that grows at the bottom of the cosmic sea. It has thorns like a rose. It will make whoever eats it young again. Not immortal, but restored.
Gilgamesh ties heavy stones to his feet and dives deep. He finds the plant. It cuts his hands. He wraps it in a cloth. He surfaces. He has it. He does not eat it immediately. He wants to bring it home. He wants to test it on an old man in Uruk first. He wants to share the gift. In this moment, after everything, Gilgamesh is finally the king his people need.
On the way back, he stops at a pool to bathe. And while he is bathing, a serpent smells the fragrance of the plant. It comes out of the water. It eats the plant. It sheds its skin right there, in front of Gilgamesh's stones and clothing, and slithers away. That is why the Mesopotamians said, snakes shed their skin, they stole renewal from a king. And the king let it happen.
Gilgamesh sits down on the bank of that pool, and the text describes him weeping. He has nothing. He has lost his friend. He has failed the sleep test. He has had the plant for one morning, and a snake has taken it. He is going home empty-handed.
And this is where the epic does something extraordinary. It does not end in despair. Gilgamesh, still grieving, still empty-handed, crosses back with a shinobi. He returns to Uruk.
And when he sees the walls of Uruk rising up again on the horizon, the walls he built, the walls the epic opened with, he turns to Shinobi, and the last verse of the epic is Gilgamesh saying, essentially, look at these walls, look at this city, look at the foundation stones of the temple, surveyed by the 7 sages. This is Uruk.
This is what I built. This is what outlives me, not my body, not a plant. This, the final answer of the oldest story in human history, is legacy, architecture, the work of your hands, the city you made better for the people in it.
Which is, by the way, where we came in. Siduri told him this in the tavern. Eat, drink, be merry, love the people near you. Utnapishtim told him this at the edge of the world. The flood was a one-time gift, you cannot have it.
And Enkidu, in death, taught him the same thing by being dead. You do not get to keep the people you love. What you get is the time you have, and the things you make and the city you leave behind.
It takes Gilgamesh the entire epic, 12 tablets, thousands of lines, a whole mythological geography to hear what the grieving priestess told him in a sentence.
And that is how real grief works. Now let's talk about what this story became.
The Epic of Gilgamesh sits at the root of an enormous amount of world literature. The parallels to Homer are striking. The Iliad opens with Achilles in the rage grief of Patroclus' death, the same emotional engine as Gilgamesh over Enkidu.
2 warriors, intimate bond, whatever label you put on it. One dies, the other spends the rest of the epic trying to come to terms with it. Scholars have argued for direct Mesopotamian influence on early Greek epic. The geographical and trade connections are there.
Ecclesiastes in the Hebrew Bible contains the famous line, "There is nothing new under the sun. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die." That is Siduri, almost word for words. Scholars have noted the echo for over a century.
The flood narrative, we already covered that. Genesis 6 through 9 is a retelling of Tablet 11 of Gilgamesh, refracted through monotheistic theology.
And in modern literature, Gilgamesh keeps resurfacing. The poet Rilke called it, and I am quoting, "the greatest thing one can experience." Science fiction writers have rated it for parallels for decades. The 1998 translation by Stephen Mitchell and the 2004 scholarly edition by Andrew George brought the story to a wider modern audience than it has had since the fall of Babylon.
And every new translation reveals more. Fragments keep turning up. In 2015, a new tablet was identified in the Suleymaniye Museum in Iraq that filled in 20 previously missing lines of Tablet 5. The cedar forest scene got new detail that scholars had been missing for 3,000 years.
The story is still literally being reassembled, like Isis walking the Nile in episode 4, picking up pieces, like Gilgamesh himself searching.
I want to circle back to George Smith for a second, because there is a detail in his story that I think is the perfect coda for this episode. George Smith died young. He was 36. He was on his 3rd expedition to Mesopotamia, trying to find more tablets. He got dysentery. He died in Aleppo in 1876, 4 years after he first read the flood tablet.
He never saw his own collected works published. He did not live to see the discipline of Assyriology grow up around the field he essentially started.
But the work he did, deciphering those tablets in the British Museum, meant that a king who had been forgotten for 2,500 years was suddenly famous again. And every translation since, from Andrew George's academic text, to the graphic novels to the middle school curricula, goes back to George Smith's 5 years of obsessive, self-taught reading.
Gilgamesh wanted to live forever. He did not get the plant. The snake took it. He went home with nothing and accepted mortality. And then the story he is in, the story of a man who accepted mortality, became the oldest surviving piece of literature in the world.
Gilgamesh is, by any reasonable definition, immortal. Not because he drank some magic water, not because he wrestled eternity from a wild man in a jeweled garden.
He is immortal because a scribe wrote it down, because a palace burned and baked the clay, because a British museum curator in the 1870s taught himself cuneiform on his lunch breaks, because translators keep retranslating, because every time someone reads this story, Uruk gets one more citizen.
The thing he was looking for he already had. He just had to let a snake take a plant away from him to understand it. And that, I think, is the gift of the oldest story we have.
If this one stayed with you, follow the show. That's how the next one finds you. And if you want to go deeper, leave a comment with the moment that hit hardest. Emma and I actually read them.
Next time on Tales Unwound, we are going somewhere cold, Norse again, but not Ragnarok this time. Not the end of the world. A fishing trip. Just a single afternoon, in a small boat, with a red-bearded thunder god Thor, and a giant named Hymer, who regretted every minute of it. Thor, using the head of an ox as bait, pulls on his fishing line, and feels something impossibly heavy take it.
What he has hooked is Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent, the world-encircling snake that is so large it lies around the entire ocean and bites its own tail. Thor pulls it up to the surface of the sea, and Hymer, terrified, cuts the line.
That's episode 6, the fishing trip that almost ended the world a little early. I am Emma.
I am Adam.
This was Tales Unwound. Stay well,